This week I'm only going to cover one mod, but we're going to be digging very deeply and discussing a lot of issues including balance, because this mod could change the way you play the game. Welcome to episode 36 of the Fallout 4 Mod Vault. In episode 11 of this series, I showed you a mod called Bullet Time, and this mod allowed you to use action points to slow down time, making it a little easier to shoot people. It was quite obviously supposed to be used as a replacement to V.A.F.S. Then in episode 25 I showed you another mod called Critical Hits outside of V.A.F.S. that gave you a random chance of getting a critical hit even when you were not using V.A.F.S. This was very similar to something like Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas. And when combined, these two mods did give you a reasonable alternative to V.A.F.S. However, even then it's not as controllable as V.A.F.S. because one of the great things in V.A.F.S. is the option to control when your criticals happen. This is a really powerful feature that gives you a little more, well, tactical control of the combat situation. But now there is a new mod, that gives you bullet time and controllable criticals that give you all of the advantages from your legendary items, your perks, and the inherent advantages of being able to choose when that critical hits, and that mod is called V.A.F.S. VaultTec Accelerated Focus System. When you first install this mod, you're going to notice a number of items that appear in your inventory. You're going to notice a focus toggler and a use crit item. These come under aid. You are going to either have to use a mod called FO4 Hotkeys mod or hotkey these to one of the number keys. Now the mod author recommends using FO4 Hotkeys mod, as do I, and I will show you why a little later. But for now I'm just going to use the standard hotkeys. There is also a miscellaneous item called V.A.F.S. Manual and Options, which will give you some control over this mod. When you activate the focus item, or as I will from now on call it, activate V.A.F.S., time slows down, very similar to the way it slows down when you use V.A.F.S. The slowdown effect is not as great as it is with V.A.F.S., and how much the effect slows down is dependent upon your perception stat. In V.A.F.S., your action points do not drain when you have slowed down time, but of course you also cannot move. You can alter your target, but you don't aim directly. Of course, V.A.F.S. takes control for you. When you start queuing shots, that is what will use the action points. However, in V.A.F.S., you will start using action points immediately, as you can see. And when you take a shot, it will use more action points. You build criticals in V.A.F.S. the same way as you do in V.A.T.S. by shooting things. As you can see, I now have one crit ready. It actually took several people for me to generate that crit. This is not a good crit build. You generate crits pretty much identically. The higher your luck, the faster you will generate the crits. Once you have a crit, you will, whilst in V.A.F.S., just activate the crit toggle, and when you hit, you will do a crit. Now the crits that you generate in V.A.F.S. are separate to the crits you generate in V.A.T.S. As you can see here, I actually have a full crit meter in V.A.T.S., but if I go into V.A.T.S., I will start doing more damage. I've been building my crit a little now. Now I've got one crit ready. I can activate that crit and use it, but when I go back to V.A.T.S., I still have a full crit meter. You don't generate crits in V.A.T.S. and V.A.F.S. at the same time when using either. You have to be in V.A.T.S. to generate the V.A.T.S. crit, V.A.F.S. to generate the V.A.F.S. crit. So honestly, I doubt anybody is going to have both crits at the same time. It's very unlikely people will be using both systems. I thought you should just be aware of that. One of the great things about this mod is that it will use the critical effect on your weapon. So if you have, say, a freeze effect, as you can see, it will work only when you trigger the critical. And it's not just the legendary effects on criticals that this mod will add, so if you have a V.A.F.S build character and you're wondering can you switch to V.A.F.S, the answer is yes. As you can see, Grim Reaper's Sprint, Critical Banker works, I've now got 2 crits. And there we have 4-leaf clover kicking in. And of course, the better criticals perk does increase the amount of damage you do during those criticals. Even things like the awareness perk does something with V.A.F.S. In this case, when you go into V.A.F.S, I can actually put the weapon away and show you this. It highlights friendlies, enemies, and even dead bodies. This could be really useful for finding loot. The perk still does the same whilst in V.A.F.S. It gives you level and damage resistances of your enemy. It's just now, if you've decided to switch to V.A.F.S, the awareness perk is not a complete waste. You can get something out of it. However, not everybody is going to like that. That might be a little too much. If you want, you can switch the effect off by going to your inventory, miscellaneous, go to the V.A.F.S manual and options, and if you have that perk, under options, you can turn the awareness highlighting off. If you don't have that perk, this option will not even be there. If you have the Penetrator perk, it actually gives a kind of X-ray vision. You get these little sparkles giving you an indication of where your enemies are, which make it a little easier to wait until they pop their heads out and then take them off. The second rank of that perk actually allows you to shoot through walls if you are using a 50 caliber or a Gauss rifle. So if I line up a shot here with his head, I actually shoot him through the wall. You do need the second rank. You don't need to be in V.A.F.S when you make that shot. However, obviously, if I have V.A.F.S first rank, I get the ability to see him through the wall, which makes the shot a little easier. You will have to forgive the horrendous damage I have on this weapon. This is my V.A.F.S character and therefore is a specialist at pistol. Again, if you don't like this effect, if you find it a little disturbing, but you still want to use Penetrator for the shooting through walls effect, you can, of course, turn that effect off again in the same place. This time it's Penetrator vision, just switch that off, and now when you go back, you will no longer have the bright red sparkles, although you will still be able to shoot through walls. The Blitz perk will now allow you to move 150% faster whilst wielding a melee weapon when in V.A.F.S, and the second rank will boost that to 3 times. So if you're a melee V.A.F.S build, you will still get a huge boost from Blitz. It's probably not quite as powerful as the V.A.F.S Blitz, but still it's going to help you a hell of a lot. At the time of making this video, concentrated fire and gunfu don't do anything in V.A.F.S, but the mod author is trying to come up with something to add to those perks to make them useful. And at the end of the day, I think that is what the true strength of this mod is. It will make a lot of the perks that you were using in V.A.F.S a lot more useful when out of V.A.F.S. It will give you a good reason to try the non-V.A.F.S game while still keeping a lot of the advantages and a lot of the power you had from your choices in V.A.F.S skills. Now, I'm sure a big question that a lot of you have is, isn't this overpowered? Is it not unbalanced? And the simple answer to that question is it depends what you're comparing it to. If you compare it to something like V.A.F.S, then the answer is no, it is not overpowered. V.A.F.S is still by far the more powerful option. You will be far harder to kill in V.A.F.S. You will do far more killing even if you're running around the wasteland in your underwear, as you can see I am. But if you're going to compare it to playing without V.A.F.S completely, then yeah, it is actually a lot more powerful. It gives you a bit of an edge. It will make it a lot easier to make those shots. This character I'm using right now is not a V.A.F.S build, and as you can see, my action points are coming back slowly. I'm going to have to keep fighting the way I would normally fight out of V.A.F.S, and wait for my action points to come back. But when they do, it will of course allow me to pick off people a little easier. But honestly, it's not that much more powerful. I mean, those sniper shots are going to be easier to make, but I don't get a lot of time to make them. Even on this character, I would actually say it's still better to use V.A.F.S if all you want is to be overpowered. Don't forget that in V.A.F.S you can make those ridiculously unlikely shots if you have a crit ready, because you never miss when you have a crit. I'm sure that most of you know that whilst in V.A.F.S, all of the damage that comes your way is reduced by an amazing 90%, which makes armor kind of optional for V.A.F.S playthroughs. However, it does not seem that this is the case while in V.A.F.S, so you're not going to be killing off hordes of legendary raiders while stood in your underwear out in the open, not bothering to take cover. Basically, I would say it was more powerful than no V.A.F.S, less powerful than V.A.F.S, but more than anything, it gives you a reason to use those legendary weapons that have those cool effects that you've never been able to use before because you didn't play with V.A.F.S. Now, I did mention the fact that it is recommended that you use Fallout 4 Hotkeys mod instead of the normal vanilla hotkeys, and that is simply because you can't use hotkeyed items by default when aiming. So I'm hitting the V.A.F.S activator now and it's not working. And of course that's normally how I would do it. I would normally aim and then slow down time, whereas what I have to do now is slow down and then aim. The same is true for the crits. If you've actually generated any crits, I will do that right now. Now I have a crit, I'll go into V.A.F.S, aim, and then hit the crit and nothing is happening. I have to hit the crit without aiming and then aim. That is a little clumsy in combat. With Fallout 4 Hotkeys mod installed, I can assign the keys, so when I aim I can now go into bullet time and I can even activate a critical when I want. This is not just more convenient, it works better in combat, the combat flows better, you don't have to keep dropping your aim to activate V.A.F.S and activate criticals. This is how I would recommend using this mod. This is a great mod. I think it does an excellent job of giving you an alternative to V.A.F.S that still allows you to use a lot of the perks that are pretty much useless if you are not a V.A.F.S player. I found the mod to be very polished, well balanced, and honestly the fact that the mod author is still trying to improve it by adding those few last perks that don't currently do anything, I think speaks volumes for this mod. There are one or two things I might want to see. So for example, I might want to see a crit indicator that wasn't using debug messages. If there could be some UI, but basically the stars, just like you get in the V.A.F.S, that would be awesome. And if you could see the crit meter filling, that would be incredible. I do realize that is a very difficult thing considering where we are at the moment with Fallout 4 modding. That is the sort of thing I imagine will require Fallout 4 Script Extender to get a little more support for papyrus scripting. However, even in its current state, this mod is well worth using. I am probably going to be using this mod on a playthrough that I had set up for V.A.F.S sometime in the future, and I may even try a melee playthrough that was going to be melee V.A.F.S, but this time with V.A.F.S to try out Blitz. All round a great mod, and I think it deserves a lot more attention than it's getting. And that is all we have time for this week. I am curious as to what you guys think of this week's format. Do you like it when I go into great depth on one mod, or do you prefer it when I cover lots of little mods? Or perhaps you're quite happy with both formats and you just want me to decide what is appropriate depending on the mods that I have found. I really am curious as to what you guys would prefer, so leave me a comment down below and I will try and check as many as possible. Of course, I'm ending the video with some screenshots that you guys have been posting. I appreciate all of your work. Please keep posting and I will keep using them in my videos. If you would like to post an image for me to use in one of my videos, I will leave a link down below. It will take you to a video that will show you exactly how you can do that, and let me thank you in advance for doing so. I'll be back next week with more great mods, or perhaps one great mod to share with you. I would love it if you could join me for that video, and I look forward to seeing you there. So until then, remember, as always, have fun. If you're curious as to whether I've covered a mod in one of my videos, feel free to go along to my website gophersvids.com and check the search functionality out. Just type the name of the mod you're interested in, open up the settings and filter by mods only. Click for search and you will see whether or not I've covered that mod. Click on the mod and it will also show you any of the videos this mod appears in.